Well, let's start on some of the stuff you've been going on.
Where do you want to go?
Well, let's start with Elon Musk. That's a popular subject. That's your most recent column, I believe. You said it's been a crazy week for him.
Well, yeah, I like Elon Musk a bunch.
Yes,
I really do, because you never know what's next with him. And you got the I guess the Twitter shareholders have to vote on the decision to let him buy the place. I don't know when that comes down. I think it's the end of this week and maybe early next week. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they'll do it because they're getting close to, I think it's $14 a share more than what they're worth if they take Elon's deal. So I'm excited to see that. I think Twitter is a cesspool. I hate it. I go there if I'm feeling too happy. So hopefully he gets control and turns it into the kind of media vehicle that really should be, which is wide open thoughts for all. I think he does have to regulate some of the divisive comments and maybe smarten people up on that. But I mean, you can't have all one political party marching down one social media highway. So that I think will open it up. What was the other thing that happened to him? Oh, his son became a girl.
Oh yeah,
changed her name from Xavier to Vivian. Apparently they don't get along too well. So that was the other thing that happened to him. You know what? I can't remember the other one.
Well, I mean, he is a disruptor. He shakes the establishment, and I gotta love it. I mean, there's parts of stuff he does I don't like. He took a lot of subsidies for Tesla and things like that, and I'm not big on that. But whatever, he's not supposed to say no to it. He's not But
but that Tesla thing, I agree with you, and to a degree, I disagree because somebody was going to get that money. Somebody who builds electric vehicles was going to get the money.
It's the system and the direction that's the problem.
Yeah,
so I mean, is he supposed to martyr himself or?
I think that if anybody's going to get the money, I'd rather have it go to somebody like Musk, who's more of an entrepreneur. I mean, he's come over to the right side, voted Republican for the first time in his life, and he's a shit disturber, which I love. I love that. I think that you have to be in this day and age to wake up people who are walking around in some kind of haze, and then something happens like that, and they go, "Oh, okay, I'll pay attention to this."
Well, and he exposed just how biased Twitter had become. Yeah. Like they denied it, but just with the reaction of Twitter staff and some media members and some partisan members, just when all he was saying is, "I'm going to buy it and I'm going to open it up. I'm not going to slide it to the right. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to open it up." And they went haywire. They went crazy. How dare you? Well, that shows just how sick the management had become of this company.
Well, not just the management, but the thinking on that far left platform, because they're screaming, "Well, we know we're going to lose our free speech," and by saying you can't do it, they're taking away free speech. So I don't know that they understand what they're talking about.
Well, the left rarely understands free speech very much. It's really like economics with them. They tend to have a
economics.
Yeah. So
that's for other people.
But I mean, interesting things that he's talked about. I mean, as we said, and I've saw some commenters saying too, Twitter's a cesspool. It's the cesspool I like swimming in, though I have a good old time on Twitter myself.
I could go on there. I might last 2 minutes.
Yeah, but there's tricks to Twitter. People have to understand. Block. Just block. It only takes you a second. Yeah. If you got some bot after you or some lunatic or some jerk, just block them. It only takes a second. The responsibility is yours. If more people would just do that instead of indulging them.
Good point. Yeah.
And the other part is one thing I liked what Musk talked about was possibly coming up with a way to verify identities.
Yes.
Because it's the anonymity that people hide behind. That's one of the worst things. That's how the bots exist. That's how some people just cross the line. I mean, not forcing everybody to verify, but at least there would be a different category. Right now, there's just blue checks and the rest.
Well, there could be behind-the-scenes verification that doesn't need to go public.
Well, that's it. It's just to show we've proven that you're an individual behind there, and there's only one account, and there's that. And then you can have whatever, fake name in front that you like.
I'd go with Corey Morgan II.
There we go.
Right here.
But I mean, it's not a bad proposition, and it's amazing how much more polite people get when they're not anonymous.
Well, yeah. If somebody's hiding behind a cement wall, they'll call you any name in the book. But if they stand on top of that wall, not so much.
No, and I like where he's going with that. So I mean, let's hope it goes through. I mean, he's got to go through the shareholders. They said that the big one was the board, and they grudgingly basically said, "Well, we can't stop this." So they've given a thumbs up, as you said. It's a good share price deal if it carries on from there. So
I remember what the other one was. The employees who are suing him for getting fired.
Oh, that's right. Yes. And there was another thing just to talk about that, free speech and how left doesn't understand it, or whatever else. I saw this snide comment, well, on Twitter of all places, but with a columnist saying, "Oh, look, the great champion of free speech has fired people for speaking up against it." Well, sure. I mean, if I went online and started doing nothing but bitch about the Western Standard and talk about how horrible it is and how bad Derek was, you know what? I'm probably going to get fired.
You should do that because I could get your show. Just kidding.
You're
Just kidding.
careful what you're asking for. But that's not an infringement of my free speech. I'd still be able to yell my head off about how bad the Western Standard is the day after getting fired. I just don't have their platform anymore to do it.
Well, they're the kind of people who they just take one step after one step after one step to see how far they can go. And eventually they get slapped and it's all, oh, you're infringing on my rights. But they'll disappear now. They will now disappear because they've been stopped.
Well, I liked your brick wall analogy. I remember a meme I've seen going around, or a cartoon. It shows I think usually a woman, but she's got a pile of manure and she's throwing it over the wall, throwing it over the wall, throwing it over the wall. And it's one turd comes flying back and hits her. I'm being oppressed.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on, you guys. You started it. But it's just fun to watch Musk. He is a fascinating guy.
He is fascinating. And not to do a direct comparison, but he reminds me of Trump in the way that, well, let's do this and see what happens. He's the kind of guy who says, I'm going to do this, and he gets it done. And he takes it on his own shoulders. He doesn't blame anybody else if it fails.
I think some of the difference, they're both irreverent. I'll give them that.
Absolutely.
I think Trump, though, was a bit more of just, I'll just lob the turd into the punch bowl and sees what happens. But I think Musk, he doesn't care what the world thinks when he tries, but he's got a little more planning and plotting with what he does. He has more of a direction with
more sophisticated.
Well, there's that too. So, but as far as just not being afraid of the establishment and willing to go in there and mix it up and shake them up, which they really need, it's good to watch. So we just keep watching his development. If you're going to be a billionaire, at least be an interesting one.
Oh, I think with Musk, there's much more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting on to other areas, then let's get into government. I'm scrolling through your stories. China using digital handcuffs.
Oh, frightening. That is frightening. And what is really frightening, I think, is it's not new. If you look at what was going on in Germany in the 30s and the 40s, or Russia in the 20s, where you couldn't step outside your door without showing some ID, and they didn't have green and red codes in Germany. They had German and yellow codes for the Jewish people. So back then they were marking people, and the Chinese doing this, I don't know. I foresee the day, and I think I wrote this, that you're going to have to take your phone and scan it by the gas pump, and it may come up as a request denied, you're over your quota, because the government could do that. That's why, if we're going to have digital ID, I think that's a fait accompli. I really do. And if you look at it, it's probably a lot more convenient to have your driver's license, your passport, credit cards, all your other ID on one little device. You push a button and go, there it is. Yeah. You're not ruffling through your pockets and stuff like that. The issue, obviously, is government interference, their involvement in the thing. When the health code QRs came out last year, I said, no, I'm not doing that because I don't trust them. And if I can't go to a restaurant or whatever for a couple of weeks, that's fine. But I do not want them tracking me on my phone, even though I know they are.
Yeah, that's part of it. Don't disillusion delude yourself. They've got a pretty good idea.
I'm aware of that. I'm sure that they know I'm here right now because I got my phone on me.
Yeah.
But for them to be able to manipulate your life based on information in your phone,
yeah, they're manipulating your behavior.
Yes.
And it's social engineering. It's a term I'm trying to bring back. We talked a lot about that term in the 90s, and it kind of faded, but it's a big one. It's where the government feels so high and mighty that is their role for our own good to change our behavior, to change what we want to do, change what we choose to do. And that, or they're calling it a social credit system in China.
Yep.
Where, if you do the wrong things, we might, sorry, you can't pump gas today. You didn't flush at the toilet we used down the road.
And they would know all that stuff. And that's what's frightening.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of the health QR codes for the COVID thing that we had here is that that's all that recorded, and none of that information was sent to a government data bank. I don't know if I believe that or not, but I want to believe it. But I don't want to see that China syndrome coming in.
Oh, and information's everything, and the government's a terrible steward of it. I had a guest on recently, and they were with a group, I forget what Open Media, I think. But it was the apps used for kids homeschooling while remote schooling while everything was in lockdown. Turns out the company that was doing that was sucking in all the information on those kids and sold the data, for data miners. I mean, again, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing much besides commercial utilization of all that data and everything, but that's a big infringement on personal privacy and liberties.
Well, and having listened to you say that, maybe it's too late. Maybe it's going to happen, but it's something that everybody should fight in some way, form, fashion, or another. Because I do know that if you're up against the left in terms of an argument or a physical fight, they'll back away. They will not fight with you. All you have to do is overpower them, and that goes with the government. Now, I'm not suggesting revolution.
No.
But I mean, obviously, our weapons are in the polling booth, and so it's very important that people really pay attention, especially with all the political stuff going on right now, that stuff is possible, that it does exist, and it could come into your life depending on who has the reins to the wagon. And I don't honestly believe the conservatives would do that.
No, well, I think that they'd be less bad. I just always don't like. I mean, I don't like government control on any level.
No, I'm with you there.
Never assume they're going to be benign. Unfortunately, I think the conservatives are less inclined. If they're in power too long, I think that's one of the issues that happens too. When they get in too long, then they really feel that sense of entitlement on our movements.
Yeah, but that's true with any government, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, government's like laundry. You got to wash them every 4 years.
Oh yeah. For the same reason, when we talk about diapers or underwear, yes, it fills with that product that we just don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's distressing. But I mean, the government is scared when they push back. I mean, look at, the things that happened this year. The protests that came in, the truckers' convoy, whether you support them or you don't support them. I mean, that was unprecedented. Seeing that many Canadians, those polite, quiet, passive Canadians, showing up by the thousands on Parliament Hill, crossing a country, raising, over $10 million. That terrified the government. I mean, that's why the government overreacted so badly in response to it.
I think that the convoy itself didn't terrify the government because of what they did, doing the Emergencies Act and just ignoring them. I think what really scared them was how much they had misjudged Canadian people. When they started fighting back against the convoy and doing all these illegal things that they were doing, people stood up. And they got angry and they voiced their opinion and going, this is not Canada. What are you doing? And I think in the little hovels and huts in Ottawa, they went, ooh, we've gone too far. We better pull this back.
Well, they embarrassed themselves internationally. That was part of it too. I mean, countries all over the world are like, what the hell is going on over there? What are you doing? I mean, not only are your citizens that livid, but what do you mean you're imposing this Emergencies Act upon them? This is just a protest. Like it's not, history's not going to smile on the actions of the government this year.
And it's one thing for all because initially at that conference, I can't remember where it was in Belgium, but Trudeau took shots from a whole lot of European leaders.
Yeah.
But last week he took shots in the House of Congress. Guy stood up in the U.S. House and said Trudeau is a bad person. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And when somebody that close to home is saying it, somebody who's open border, friendly neighbor, stuff like that, that's really got to dig deep.
Yeah, he's really overstaying his welcome. Even I'm seeing some liberal columnists are starting to kind of say, this guy is got to go, or Don Martin's piece, just to, I wouldn't call him a liberal columnist necessarily, but he's an establishment one for sure.
Yes.
And he just ripped Trudeau to shreds in that thing. When they're standing up and ripping at him, this is not a good indication for Trudeau's future.
But I wonder if guys like Don Martin, and you see it going on in the States right now too, the backlash against Biden, but is that the media flashing a warning to people like Trudeau and Biden saying, clean up your game? Is that what they're doing, or do they really want to get rid of them?
Well, I could see them wanting to get rid of him and put another liberal in.
No, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they're like firing a shot across the bow.
It could be. I mean, at this point, this is just it's just starting right now.
Yeah.
So, shape up or we're going to really get at you.
Yeah.
But, it's going to take a lot more. I mean, that's what Dave and I were talking with the news check-in, like with this thing breaking with apparent police interference into the investigation, prime ministerial interference potentially. This is huge. And why aren't we hearing more about this?
How did he get away with it?
And I think in any rational country, he'd be toast.
Oh yeah.
But I think he'll get away with it again.
You're saying Canada is not rational?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, what does it take to get rid of this guy?
I don't know. I don't know. I've got some ideas, but I think we'll just zip that.
Yeah,
right now.
no, we don't need to be. I understand some things that'll work, but it'll lead to some other difficulties that we were. I mean, one of the other pressures. I was ranting a bit about that before you came in, and you've talked about that with interest rate hikes. You write a lot on real estate. That's one of your main areas of writing and things like that. And we've got some serious financial pressures going on. Inflation is huge, and of course that pushes for more interest rate hikes, and you get into an ugly cycle. They could lead to a recession if they crank the interest too fast, too hard.
And that's the hazard. The Bank of Canada originally started talking about, well, we need to increase the interest rates to cool down the housing market, which is fair enough. But it missed the inflation thing, and now all of a sudden inflation's up here. What is it?
7.7%, I think, was the latest
in May. Yeah, and the bank is going, whoa, the target is not housing, kids. It's not. It's everything.
Yes.
And the next bank announcement is July 13th, and I think they're going to raise it 0.75, which would take their overnight to 2.25. And then they've got another meeting, I believe, in September, and they'll do another 0.75 then. They wanted to get it up above 3. They wanted it comfortably, I think they want it at 3.25. The normal range for the Bank of Canada is between 2% and 3%. That's what they call the neutral zone. But Macklin has said to get back to a neutral, we got to go way above it. So that's really going to be painful.
Well, and some of those stats that have been coming out, I mean, there's a frightening number of Canadians who they're this close. They can't take a sudden hike in their mortgage payment every month. Like, this could push them over the edge. That's how you suddenly topple into a recession if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I've read some stories. The regular guys are out. It's the end of the world, runaway, housing crash, and I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll tell you why. Is that, I mean, if you go back to what happened in 2008, especially in the United States, when we had that recession, it's totally a different thing right now. The United States outlawed the bad mortgages that were being written. Canada introduced the mortgage stress test. So you have to test higher than your actual rate to get a mortgage. So most Canadians are already paying, or were tested that they could pay an extra 2% on their mortgages per month and still be not comfortable, but they could manage it. So I think that's where it's going on. And the other thing I think we have to look at is that it's going to be different in different parts of the country. British Columbia, especially Vancouver, Toronto, and the entire Golden Horseshoe area are going to get it worse because they're so expensive.
They're carrying balances that are just unbelievable.
Well, yeah. I mean, the average single family house in both those markets is plus $2 million. I mean, where do you get a down payment for that? I don't know. Saskatchewan and Alberta, I believe, are going to come out of it okay. I think we'll get nicked, but we're not going to get run over by the bus. I really don't think so. Toronto and BC, different stories. I'm looking at the Toronto or the Calgary numbers all this week, and overall sales are down slightly. Single-family home sales are down. Semi-detached homes are down, but the two cheapest ends, townhouses and apartments, are up. And that's year over year in terms of sales and pricing. The only area where the prices have dropped in Calgary year over year, and I hate using that, is in single family and an overall thing. But people should be looking at not what it was like last year. If you want to do comparisons and follow trends, then you have to go compare this month's statistics to last month's statistics, because that's immediate. That's in the now. And 3 months makes a trend. So June is the third month really of any kind of a decline. So whatever the numbers are at the end of this month, I think will be a harbinger of not necessarily what's going to happen in the summer, but certainly in September, because the summer's a slow sales season anyway. So, and with the interest rates going up, they'll back off even more. So it's going to look even worse doing a year-over-year comparison. But again, that people shouldn't do that.
And there might not be a calamitous crash, like as you said, there was a different bubble that had been built altogether in the States with what was it, Freddie Mac and whatnot, where they were giving mortgages to people who had no business having one in the first place. It was just asking for it. Someone was pointing out too, like in '83, she was paying 23% and more, Paulette, for interest on a mortgage. Like we aren't there. I mean, that was insane. I mean, people trying to maintain that were creeping up. But I mean, it still will have an impact. I mean, if people aren't losing their houses, they can make it. As you said, the stress test shows that, but they're still going to cut back. I mean,
it's going to cut back.
Yeah,
there's no question.
And that hurts other sectors of the economy.
The thing is, you're locked into that mortgage, so that mortgage is going to take, say, another $20, $25 a month. That $20, $25 are going to be taken from somewhere else.
Yeah,
there's no question about that.
It's another less meal, or I mean, and that sounds, $25 a month is pretty small. It could get larger with a lot.
Could be larger. Depends on your mortgage.
Yeah, and that people choose to take one less vacation, or not go out for supper, or not buy that furniture, or hang on to the car for another year. I mean, lots of things people do.
Yeah.
Which I mean is good, responsible budgeting, but it has a ripple effect all the way down in the economy.
Well, you mentioned the economy. The economy now is a lot different than it was back then. It's more diversified. The employment levels in all of Canada are high. They're solid. If it's a really severe, immediate recession, then a lot of those jobs are going to be lost. But I think it's going to be gradual.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, we've just had a miserable enough few years. We don't need a bloody crash.
Yeah, all the bad news every day.
So, what's this? You wrote that was the other week though. Yeah, the BC ranch with 8 houses, though only 24 million. So there's still some people with some money selling somewhere.
Well, I was thinking about that. See, you've got 8 homes there. They want 24 mil. So you get 8 people, toss in 3 mil each, and you could rotate the main house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're living in an $8 million place for 3 mil. What's tough about that? Well, the 3 mil.
You're doing better than I am. I guess I understand the theory here.
No, I didn't say I could do it.
Yeah.
I just showing off my math skills.
There are some big properties out there. Just to point out some of the stuff you write on too in some of those columns. I mean, there's just stuff of interest and housing sort of issues. Just one last thing. I mentioned that in the email while I got you in. You're a Beltline resident in Calgary. A big issue that I've been ramping on a lot about is the crime on transit and so on, but also the Beltline in general. Like we've got a really big friggin' problem going on right now, and a city council that almost still wants to deny that it's even happening.
I walked here from my place in the Beltline, took the 8th Street underpass.
Yeah, that's where I go every day. Yeah.
3 guys down there cranking up right there on the street in front of everybody. And I'm just like, whoa, because I've never seen that before. That open on 8th Street, that time of day.
Yeah, they use that little stairwell all the time, and they can sit and
go up the 9th.
Because that's where I walk to where I park, and I see it. And that's part of what gets me worked up, because I can see it.
Well, and this season brings out the people, because the nights are warmer, they're longer, and there's one poor lady, I don't know her name. I see her from a distance, but every morning she's walking up and down 12th Avenue yelling at the top of her voice. She's obviously got some mental issues, and I don't know why the authorities, whoever they might be, don't go and pick her up and say, look, here's a bed for you, here's some food, here's some care, just relax, we'll look after you. She's there every morning.
Yeah, well, that's something that it's such a huge issue, that whole thing. Like I've reached out to I'm still waiting to try and get her on as a guest, a woman who wrote a book about it. But I mean, deinstitutionalization. We've taken a lot of people who we used to keep in facilities, and with what we thought was a more humane thing to do, put them out in the community, let them out. And this is a lot of the people that have ended up on the streets, or they end up in jail, or they end up in hospitals. Because as you're saying, that this woman, yes, clearly is distressed, but do they have somewhere to put her if they pick her up?
That's another good point, I guess. But there should be.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of some of the stuff the city spends its money on, our money, sorry.
Whoa.
Their priorities are all goofed up. And goofed up isn't the phrase I meant. But when they start spending things on pretty things, or trying to put apartments in downtown high rises, that money could be better spent building a facility, a big one, because that's a lot of money they're spending on that. And no, that's another thing that irks me. When the arena deal was going on, everybody's screaming about, well, you can't spend taxpayers' money on that. Well, don't they know that the taxpayers' money's building those residentials downtown?
Yeah.
So
there's the Calgary Housing Corporation and things like that that are artificially purchasing. That's a whole other issue.
well,
on its own.
it's bureaucracy.
Yeah, and we've got a mayor who seems desperate for an emergency. She really does. She wants something to make her mark. It's almost like she's envious, which I doubt he would consider it to be enviable all the same. But the thing that really boosted Ninchi was the floods happened in 2013. He provided a very good public face for it. He was very communicative. It really established him as the mayor and helped him through what I think was a lot of horrible policies for years, but people still were endeared to him. Part of what went.
I agree, and
there.
I go back to that, and I think he doesn't deserve all that.
No,
He's not doing anything. He's walking around talking.
But if she wants an emergency rather than a climate one, look at the emergency on the street. Get out of your city hall, go for a walk through the Beltline, ride a train. We have a real emergency, a real one. You can make your legacy. You can make your mark. If you've got 87 billion you can spend on a climate plan, I think you could find $1 billion, as you said, for a facility for people with mental health issues and addiction issues and get them off the streets and trains.
And you'd find the staff to look after them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 87 billion for,
Yeah, it's insane.
It is, totally. But yeah, I think you're right. She is looking for an emergency where she can jump out in front of the parade and be the savior. I laughed about the building the berms on Memorial Drive before the water flow even called for it out west. And now they're ripping it down. So there's 300 grand gone.
Yeah.
And in 13, the areas down around Mission and Elbow and 25th Avenue, that was flooded for blocks. No berm down there.
No.
Just for those nice folks in Parkdale.
Where you can see it.
Yeah.
There's part of it. Look what we're doing.
Yeah.
We want you to see what we're doing.
Yeah.
And there's also been a fixation on City Hall. They just love closing Memorial whenever the hell they can.
Oh, I know.
They got a thing for that.
I know.
But either way, it's just a frustration. You're living in the Beltline. I've noticed even, the hipster in chief, Kara, has realized there's a crime problem now that bicycles are getting stolen. It didn't matter that everybody else has been getting hit, but now that we got bikes, now we've got a crisis.
But, Kara and Walcott, the two of them who shut down the freedom marches here by calling them all white supremacists and racist, they don't do anything until one of their constituents, or two of them, or maybe four, calls up and said, had my bike stolen.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get right on that.
Never mind 100 catalytic converters a day were getting stolen from people's driveways because these addicts would ride the trains out. They go into the area with a portable cutter and hack those things up. People have been screaming about that for years. It's not a problem. Oh my God, a bicycle went missing. Well, now we got an issue.
It reminds me of something that Hillary Clinton said the other day about telling the Democrats in the United States, get away from the issues. We're being hurt by being vocal about all these issues that are going on. Just shut up and do whatever you have to do to get us reelected. Now there's Kara, there's Walcott. Don't care about anything except getting reelected. The hell with the problems.
Yeah, and again, you're living in it down there.
Yeah.
And we even hear from, he points it out now and then, the Dinger and some other folks who are living in the Beltline. They've been raising the alarms. They're saying, hey, this is getting bad down here. We've got an area that was 20 years ago was unimaginable. You could walk the Beltline at night. You never thought twice of it. You get run across the odd drunk or weirdo. That's normal, but not like now. And as you said, they're shooting up right under the bridge. In the 80s, we used to, growing up in Banff, go half a mile into the woods to smoke half a joint because we're scared we're going to be arrested and thrown in jail. And now they're pumping heroin in the middle of the streets of the city.
Yeah, people walking by, and I'm just as guilty.
Yeah, just look straight ahead.
Walk by, because what are you going to do? You can't stop and say you shouldn't do that.
No,
you don't know what kind of knife or gun they got going on.
Well, yeah, or they might be passive, but there's still nothing you can do with them. I mean, those ones don't scare me as much as the meth heads, actually. The heroin one, unfortunately, is probably going to kill themselves or just flop out.
The meth heads are scary.
The meth heads, they go wild, and they're the ones you see running into the streets, or as one of our staff members got delayed for work because one decided to lose bowel control in the middle of a crosswalk for a number of lights. But again, these were unimaginable things to mention 20 years ago and look at it.
No.
Oh, well, we can keep talking about it, keep trying to expose it, and maybe City Hall will wake up. If enough bicycles get stolen or, I don't know what it'll take.
Yeah, I think it's like I said earlier, the ammunition that we've got is at the ballot box. And we've got to be much better organized, more informed. And I think as conservative-minded people, we've got to get together in a single group instead of all these different conservative groups. And one for all for one kind of thing, because without that, nothing will change.
No, It's up to us. We got the means. We just got to get off our asses. Oh, well, all right. Well, that was a good long chat. I appreciate you coming in.
Enjoyed
and,
it.
yeah, it's always fun to have you in, talk these issues, and I appreciate the columns as they keep coming. So, well, we haven't solved all the world's problems. We solved a couple, I think.
Well, we solved some, but you create some more so you can come back and solve them later.
That's right. Well, thanks for coming in, Mike. Good to see you.
Okay, Corey, thank you.
We'll talk again
All right.
soon.
Hey.